Brentwood, Los Angeles, a neighborhood where luxury and secrecy go hand in hand, hiding the lives of its residents behind grand walls and manicured lawns. A place where perfection is not simply desired but demanded, where everyone projects an image of success, happiness, and control. Yet, behind closed doors, shadows linger and lives unravel in ways no one could predict. In this world lived Priya Sharma, a woman whose life seemed flawless from the outside. Married to Vikram Sharma, a rising tech mogul whose company was rapidly approaching a valuation of hundreds of millions of dollars. A man whose charm and ambition carried him across continents, leaving Priya alone in the sprawling, Spanish-style mansion they called home. Priya had once been a star in the dance world of Mumbai, her classical training and extraordinary talent winning admiration from everyone who encountered her. Yet, she had set aside that luminous career when she married, embracing the role of the perfect wife and hostess, maintaining a polished presence for parties, social gatherings, and the endless stream of acquaintances she cultivated in a foreign country. Despite the glamour and the carefully curated social image, her days were increasingly marked by isolation. The mansion echoing with silence, broken only by the sound of her own footsteps or the faint hum of background music she played to keep the emptiness at bay. While Vikram traveled to Singapore, Tokyo, and other international hubs, often gone for weeks at a time, Priya's existence became a cycle of cooking elaborate meals she would eat alone, volunteering at the local Indian cultural center to teach children dance in a way that allowed her to pour her energy into something tangible, and wandering through the empty rooms of her house, as if searching for meaning in the grand architecture and designer furniture that surrounded her, yet failed to fill the void. Security footage later revealed her aimless movements, her meticulous routines, and the growing signs of loneliness and vulnerability that no outsider could have noticed, though those who knew her would later reflect on subtle hints of a life slipping quietly into despair. Just 3 doors away, another story was quietly unfolding in parallel, belonging to Aiden Maxwell, a 19-year-old with a restless spirit, whose black and white photographs had already won local acclaim for capturing urban isolation in stark, taunting imagery. A young man whose artistic pursuits clashed with the expectations of his father, and whose life was defined by the fractures of divorced parents and a lack of consistent guidance, leaving him both sensitive and unpredictable, craving attention and understanding in ways that would soon intersect fatally with Priya's own solitude. Their paths crossed in January 2023 when Priya hired Aiden to photograph the renovations of the Sharma home for what was supposed to be a digital coffee table book for Vikram's birthday professional arrangement, at first marked by polite conversation, distant manners, and the transactional nature of client and young artist. Yet beneath the surface, subtle shifts began to occur. Small gestures, shared appreciation for art and culture, and lingering glances that seemed innocent in isolation, slowly deepened into something neither could anticipate, a connection that grew in secrecy, feeding on their mutual loneliness and unfulfilled emotional needs. Text messages that started as logistical coordination gradually included discussions of Indian cinema, literature, and personal thoughts. Each message building a bridge between two people who had never truly felt understood in their respective lives. Priya, whose marriage had become increasingly distant due to Vikram's absences, found in Aiden both admiration and attention she had been starved for. Someone who appreciated her culture and intellect in a way her husband no longer did. While Aiden saw in Priya a validation and presence unlike anything he had experienced before, a muse for his art and a mirror for his yearning soul. Social gatherings and cultural events, previously routine, became charged with new energy as they navigated the growing tension of a forbidden relationship. Each encounter layered with unspoken emotions and the thrill of secrecy. Over months, their meetings stretched longer, conversations deepened, and the lines between professional obligation and personal desire blurred. A process so gradual that outsiders would have found nothing suspicious, yet within the walls of the Sharma mansion, an intricate web of infatuation and obsession quietly took hold, the seeds of tragedy being sown in the shadow of elegance and perfection. In these months, Priya attempted to reconcile her growing feelings with her sense of duty, attempting small gestures of normalcy, even as her thoughts were increasingly consumed by the young man living just 3 doors away, someone whose presence offered warmth and attention in contrast to her distant husband. For Aiden, the connection intensified beyond artistic admiration, entering the realms of possessiveness and longing, fueled by the exhilaration of being noticed and valued by someone older, someone graceful, someone unattainably sophisticated, yet emotionally reachable in these stolen moments. Their secretive exchanges, combined with the pressures of marital obligations, cultural expectations, and personal insecurities, created a combustible mix, setting the stage for a collision of desire, obsession, and desperation, where rationality would be eroded by emotion and circumstance, and the illusion of perfection that defined their lives would crumble, leaving only consequences neither could fully imagine. As spring turned toward early summer, the invisible tension grew, hidden in polite smiles, whispered texts, and the clandestine timing of meetings, a tension that would soon erupt violently, shattering the serene veneer of Brentwood and exposing the fragility of human desire. obsession, and the dangerous interplay of loneliness and forbidden connection in a world where appearances had always mattered more than reality. The days following the initial spark of their clandestine connection saw Priya and Aiden navigating a dangerous emotional landscape, one built on secrecy, subtle manipulation, and the intoxicating thrill of being seen in ways no one else had noticed before. Each encounter became a calculated dance, full of unspoken intentions and tentative boundaries that neither fully respected nor could maintain. As the lines between mentorship, friendship, and illicit desire blurred under the weight of loneliness and craving, Priya, increasingly entrapped by her own feelings and the contrast between her unfulfilling marriage and the intensity of her connection with Aiden, began to make small but significant adjustments to her life, carving out moments to be alone in her home where she could communicate with him without fear of interruption, engaging in discussions that ranged from art and poetry to confessions of doubt and personal failure. Each exchange a tether pulling them closer, while simultaneously widening the gulf between her public persona and private reality. For Aiden, the relationship became all-consuming, his artistic output now infused with images and themes inspired by Priya, each photograph capturing not only aesthetic beauty, but also an intimate glimpse into her mind and the emotional landscape. She revealed only to him his obsession sharpened by the contrast between his youth and her worldly experience, and by the thrill of walking the thin line between the forbidden and the acceptable. As the weeks turned into months, subtle patterns emerged that neither party could entirely ignore. The times Vikram was away were now meticulously tracked meetings and communications, planned around his schedule, and every precaution taken to maintain the illusion that nothing untoward was occurring. Yet the intensity of their bond defied such logistical boundaries, growing unchecked in private spaces that offered safety and anonymity. Friends and neighbors began to notice minor inconsistencies. The way Priya's attention lingered on her phone, her sudden excuses to leave social gatherings, and her tendency to schedule appointments for home improvements or photography sessions at unusually strategic times. Though nothing overtly suspicious could be proved, these small observations planted seeds of unease that would later take on far greater significance. Meanwhile, Aiden's parents, already concerned about his increasing isolation and single-minded devotion to art, began noticing his distracted behavior, the intensity of his focus on projects connected to Priya, and the subtle but undeniable obsession that had begun to dominate his life, raising questions about the boundaries between inspiration and fixation, admiration and infatuation. This emotional tension reached its first critical point one evening, when a scheduled photography session extended unexpectedly late into the night. The mansion, empty save for Priya and Aiden, and the combination of dim lighting, intimate conversation, and mutual vulnerability escalated to a level neither had anticipated, creating an emotional and psychological environment ripe for impulsive decisions and blurred ethical lines. The incident, small and seemingly contained in isolation, acted as a catalyst, accelerating the trajectory of their relationship from a clandestine connection into the realm of potential danger. Each participant increasingly rationalizing their behavior with mental justifications and emotional reasoning, ignoring the broader consequences that loomed over them like a storm cloud. As the narrative unfolded, the professional world of Vikram Sharma's business began to intersect unknowingly with this personal drama. Staff, contractors, and assistants working within the Sharma home became unintentional observers, witnesses to subtle anomalies, fleeting glimpses, and curious patterns, none of which immediately raised alarm, but which, in hindsight, formed a mosaic of precursors to the inevitable breakdown. The dynamics of power, age, experience, and desire intertwined in ways that created not only a personal crisis for Priya and Aiden, but also a ripple effect on their surrounding environment, a microcosm of psychological tension manifesting in behavioral anomalies, secretive actions, and escalating emotional intensity. As early summer advanced, the duo began discussing scenarios and hypothetical situations that, while phrased as playful what-ifs, betrayed a deep fascination with transgression, with risk, and with testing the boundaries of morality, legality, and personal consequence. Each question, each hypothetical, drew them further into a world in which rationality was subordinated to desire. Each scenario a rehearsal for choices they had not yet consciously made, but which their hearts and minds had already started scripting. Priya found herself increasingly drawn to the idea of defiance, of autonomy, and of reclaiming aspects of herself that had long been suppressed, while Aiden wrestled with a volatile mixture of reverence and obsession, caught between admiration and the darker impulses that come from unbridled infatuation, each day amplifying the psychological complexity of their interactions. The mansion, once a symbol of stability and success, became a stage for the enactment of secret longings and fleeting moments of vulnerability that could neither be undone nor fully explained to anyone else. Even the carefully controlled surveillance and security systems installed for safety and peace of mind bore silent witness to the shifting dynamics of desire, obsession, and secrecy, documenting actions that would later form crucial evidence in unraveling the story. Friends who had once seen Priya as poised, controlled, and impeccable began to perceive a subtle shift, her laughter tinged with nervousness, her eyes betraying preoccupations, and her schedule increasingly dictated by meetings with a young photographer, though outwardly she maintained the facade of perfection. The internal psychological landscape was becoming increasingly volatile. Aiden, for his part, began to make increasingly bold gestures, small tests of boundaries, and emotionally loaded communications designed to gauge Priya's responses and deepen their connection, blurring the lines between mentorship, friendship, and something far more dangerous. By mid-June, the trajectory of their story was firmly set on a collision course. Fueled by secrecy, emotional dependence, and a shared thrill of illicit connection, with both parties increasingly unable to envision a future that did not include the other. Even as the logical mind protested and circumstances imposed barriers, the narrative tension reached a psychological tipping point as they began imagining scenarios that straddled the line between fantasy and action. Each scenario building the suspense, highlighting the dangerous interplay of human vulnerability, forbidden desire, and the slow erosion of rationality in a controlled environment where appearances still mattered above all. As the summer heat intensified, so did the emotional climate within the Sharma mansion and the surrounding community, creating a pressure cooker environment in which small events could ignite catastrophic outcomes. Each minor incident, miscommunication, and hidden desire acting like tinder for a blaze that would soon consume not only the individuals involved, but also the delicate equilibrium of their social and familial worlds, proving how secrecy, obsession, and emotional isolation can conspire to generate consequences that ripple far beyond the initial spark. As the tension that had been simmering for months finally reached its peak, the psychological, emotional, and social pressures converged into a series of events that neither Priya nor Aiden could have fully anticipated. Each decision, glance, and whispered word carrying the weight of consequences that extended far beyond the immediate moment. The delicate balance they had maintained between secrecy and exposure began to collapse under the relentless weight of obsession, longing, and the inexorable logic of cause and effect, creating a climate in which every action seemed preordained, yet uncontrollable, as if the narrative itself were pulling them toward an inevitable reckoning. The mansion, once a sanctuary of order, now bore the invisible scars of their clandestine engagement, each room and hallway imbued with memories, coded messages, and emotional residue that transformed ordinary domestic spaces into arenas of psychological confrontation, testing the limits of their judgment, restraint, and self-awareness. Priya, increasingly aware of the precariousness of their situation, attempted to rationalize, compartmentalize, and maintain control. Yet every interaction with Aiden intensified the magnetic pull toward surrender, blurring her perception of right and wrong, morality and desire, while simultaneously amplifying the cognitive dissonance between her public persona and private impulses. The tension manifested not only in emotional stress, but also in physical manifestations of anxiety, sleepless nights, and the gnawing sense that their secret world could implode at any moment. Aiden, for his part, oscillated between creative inspiration and obsessive compulsion. His photographic work, now a conduit for complex emotions, ethical ambiguity, and the dangerous thrill of forbidden intimacy. Each shot an artifact of their growing entanglement and a mirror reflecting the intensity of his internal world. As midsummer unfolded, minor incidents began to escalate in significance. A misdelivered message, an unexpected visit, or a chance encounter, each one acting as a catalyst, accelerating the inevitable confrontation between desire and consequence, secrecy and exposure, stability and chaos. The ripple effects began to extend outward, touching acquaintances, staff, and extended family in subtle, yet profound ways, as the story began to exceed the confines of the mansion and permeate the social ecosystem that surrounded them. In this crucible of tension, the first cracks in Priya's meticulously constructed emotional defenses began to appear, manifesting as brief hesitations, conflicting thoughts, and internal debates over the morality, legality, and practicality of their bond. While Aiden's youthful idealism collided with the hard realities of life, social expectations, and the ethical implications of their increasingly intimate relationship, doubt, and explosive emotional clarity. That left both participants teetering on the edge of revelation and self-destruction. One pivotal evening, a series of coincidental events, an unplanned visit by a relative, a delayed delivery, and the accidental interception of a message, created a moment of unintentional exposure that forced both Priya and Aiden to confront the tangible consequences of their choices, igniting a sequence of rapid, high-stakes decisions, psychological defenses, and attempts at damage control, each action simultaneously compounding the tension and clarifying the risks they had long ignored. As the narrative accelerated, the social and psychological environment surrounding them became increasingly hostile, laden with potential discovery, suspicion, and judgment, demonstrating the inescapable nature of cause and effect in human behavior and the complex interplay between secrecy, desire, and consequence. Priya's internal struggle intensified as she oscillated between fear, longing, and the desperate need to assert autonomy, while also grappling with guilt, responsibility, and the potential for irreversible harm. These conflicting motivations manifested in heightened emotional awareness, sharp reflexivity, and strategic thinking aimed at preserving both self and connection. Yet, the unpredictable nature of external events continued to erode any semblance of control. Aiden, increasingly aware of the delicate, ethical, and emotional boundaries, began to explore avenues of restraint, negotiation, and psychological management. Yet each step forward carried with it the risk of exposure, misinterpretation, and the irreversible consequences of crossing societal and personal limits. The culmination of these dynamics produced a series of high-stakes interactions that were simultaneously emotionally raw, ethically complex, and socially charged. Each encounter a microcosm of the larger narrative tension, illustrating the delicate interplay of psychological drives, human vulnerability, and the consequences of unrestrained desire. In the story's denouement, the inevitability of exposure, self-realization, and social consequence reached a climax as both Priya and Aiden were forced to reconcile the emotional, psychological, and moral dimensions of their relationship with the realities of their respective lives, creating a poignant, suspenseful, and morally resonant conclusion. The mansion, once a site of secrecy and private longing, now stood as a testament to human complexity, the consequences of clandestine desire, and the inescapable intersection of personal choice and societal expectation. Ultimately, the story illustrated not only the seductive power of intimacy and psychological connection, but also the fragility of human systems, the consequences of secrecy, and the profound implications of crossing emotional and ethical boundaries, leaving both the characters and the audience with lingering questions about morality, desire, consequence, and the human propensity to pursue. What is alluring, yet perilous, encapsulating a suspenseful, psychologically intricate narrative that resonates with timeless human themes? Did the twists and secrets in this story keep you on the edge of your seat? Comment below and tell us which moment shocked you the most. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more suspense-filled stories that push the limits of human psychology. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a new episode of thrilling mysteries.